Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on getting started with ArcGIS Urban. My name is Evelyn Lele, and I'll be taking you through this session. So before we get started, I'd like to point out a few things. So one is that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel within 10 business days. And then in case you have any questions or comments in the course of this presentation, make use of the chat section and we'll be able to respond to your questions or comments in the course of this presentation. So once again, you're most welcome to this webinar on getting started with ArcGIS Urban. Cities are undergoing profound change as a result of urbanization. And as we all know, the future of the world is actually urban. And currently, over half of the world's population are now living in cities or urban areas. And this is expected to double by the year 2050. So meaning that we'll have more people living in urban areas and we'll also have more urban challenges. And so with this kind of trend and the changes that are expected to happen as a result of urbanization, we'll have more urban challenges. We'll have challenges of unplanned or informal settlements within cities and urban areas. We will have challenges of urbanization on the environment and so on and so forth. And of course, planners are the center of ensuring that despite the changes that are taking place as a result of urbanization, like changes in land use, they still need to ensure that the land uses are ordered. They still need to ensure that the different changes that are actually being experienced in urban areas as a result of urbanization and the different developments that are coming up are still compatible with the existing land uses. And of course, ensuring that they minimize the effects of urbanization. So as a result of this, there's need to have a decision support system or a tool that is actually able to help urban planners and other stakeholders within the built environment. So that's why we have ArcGIS Urban. So ArcGIS Urban is meant to enhance collaboration and synchronized workflows between urban planners and the other stakeholders within the built environment. So think of the architects, think of the engineers, think of the construction managers, or what is famously known as the AEC collection. Think of the real estate developers. So all these people, actually all the professionals within the built environment, all their processes are interdependent. So the planner has to determine the places that are suitable for development for the different users. Then the architect will now come in and do the drawings, and the engineers, and then the real estate developers, the construction managers will be brought on board. So all these processes are actually interdependent. Then of course we have the citizens for whom these plans and proposals are being made for. So all these people require need to collaborate in one way or the other, and there's need to synchronize the different workflows between all these stakeholders, and that's why we have ArcGIS Urban. So what exactly is ArcGIS Urban? So ArcGIS Urban is a 3D modeling and planning application for designing, visualizing, and sharing plans. So this is mainly aimed at ensuring that the various urban planning processes are streamlined and ensuring that urban planners and the other stakeholders can actually be able to make informed and better decisions. So, and then the other thing about ArcGIS Urban is that it's inherently 3-dimensional. So you can actually have your 3D plans and projects at different scales. And then for those of us who are not familiar with the ArcGIS platform, ArcGIS is a premium, ArcGIS Urban is a premium application on ArcGIS Online. So meaning you can only use it on ArcGIS Online. So it's a premium application on ArcGIS Online. And then what I also need to emphasize is that it's a 3D application for planners and for planning workflows. So whether you're in private sector, whether you're in government, so this is meant for all planners, regardless of whether you're in government or private sector. So in terms of integration of this application with the other solutions and applications that we have within the ArcGIS platform, Urban has actually been integrated well with the other applications and solutions that we have within the ArcGIS platform. So as I mentioned, it's a premium application on ArcGIS Online. And we are currently at version 1.1. The first release was in 2019. That was version 1.0. So it's actually been linked with the other application. We have ArcGIS Pro, which is the main desktop application for authoring content, for doing analysis. So content that has been authored in ArcGIS Pro can be published to ArcGIS Online and utilized by ArcGIS Urban. Then we also have Esri City Engine, which is one of the main 3D applications that mainly uses procedural rules, what we call computer generated architecture, CGA rules, to be able to generate 3D models. So once you're done with your 3D designs in City Engine, then you can also publish that to ArcGIS Online, and that can be utilized in ArcGIS Urban. And of course, we also have, so those are desktop applications. So we also have web applications such as Community Analyst, which is mainly used for authoring custom indicators. So the content from the content from these can also be consumed in Urban. Then we also have GeoPlanner for ArcGIS. So GeoPlanner for ArcGIS is also one of the tailored applications mainly for analysis for urban planning. So the content from this can also be utilized by ArcGIS Urban. So in terms of integration within the platform, Urban has actually been well integrated with the other applications within the ArcGIS platforms. Then I think what I also need to mention is that notice that all these applications can have content in different formats. So we have content in shape files, we have content in DXF and all that. So the different formats can actually be incorporated and used in ArcGIS Urban. So I know someone could be wondering, so how exactly can I use Urban, or scenarios where you can be able to use Urban if you're an urban planner in government or in private practice? So first, you're able to visualize projects citywide. So if you have, think of projects as action plans, maybe within a plan. So if you have projects in different parts, you can actually be able to see the status of the projects. You can be able to see which projects are currently ongoing, which projects are stalled, which projects have been approved, and so on and so forth. And then these will help improve planning productivity by virtue that you'll be able to visualize the different plans, the zoning ordinances in 3D. And also, if there's need to update these plans and projects over time, you can actually be able to do these in ArcGIS Urban. Then increase transparency and understanding. So by virtue that we're able to bring the different stakeholders on board, everyone can get to understand what exactly is happening, what exactly are we proposing, what exactly are we planning, which also results to better stakeholder and public engagement. So of course, planning, when you're doing plans, you need to do it with and for the people, meaning that you have to incorporate the views and ideas of the people you're actually planning for, so that there is buy-in and acceptability of the plan when it's actually complete. So Urban gives you that. Urban comes in two main views. The first view is what we call the user view or the overview. So the user view or the overview is a read-only view. So for this, for you to be able to utilize this, so there's no licensing required, and there's also no need to sign in. So this is mainly used when you need to engage maybe stakeholders or members of the public to give in their views. So they can only be able to see what you've published and then give their comments. So as an organization, maybe as a planning firm, or as a county government, or a county physical planning department, or a county or a local authority, you can actually be able to determine what you want to share with members of the public. So on the user view, this is mainly determined by the organization. You'll be able to determine, we want to share this kind of information. For instance, if you're preparing a plan and you're at the stage of notifying members of the public that we have finished preparing this plan, we need comments, or we are in the process of preparing this plan and we need comments. So you can make use of this section or of this view of ArcGIS Urban. Then we also have the plan editor view, which is mainly an internal view. So this view has both read and write capabilities. And so for this, you will require an ArcGIS Urban license, and you'll also need to sign in. So from here, you're able to make plans, configure your project and all that. So you have both read and write capabilities. We're going to look at this shortly in the demonstration because we'll be mainly looking at creating your plans, updating that here. So we have those two views. We have the overview, which is the external view or the user view, and then we have the plan editor view, which is mainly the internal view. So Urban comes with various components. So the first component are the plans. So of course, when you're preparing your plans, we have different types of plans at different scales. So if you're doing, say, a county spatial plan, or if you're doing a municipal or urban area plan, or a neighborhood plan, so you can actually be able to author your plans from here. And this also allows you to have your plan in 3-dimension. Then, of course, ensuring that your plan is data informed, ensuring that your plan is people oriented, the need to actually plan with and for the people, ensuring transparency, including the different stakeholders as you do this. So the first component is the plans component. Then we have the projects. So for projects, think of projects as action area, the action area plans within a plan. So for instance, if you're doing a county spatial plan, you'll have different action area plans within the bigger plan. So think of these as projects. So again, following the same steps that you used when preparing the plan, ensuring that it's data informed, ensuring that it's people oriented and all that. So, and also with the projects, we're able to see the status of the different projects. So if it's within one plan, you're able to see the different projects, you're able to see the status of the projects, which ones, what are the timelines for maybe a specific project. You're able to see, was this a short-term project, a long-term project? How exactly are we doing? Are we still operating within the timelines, or do we need to do something about it? So there's also the project section. Then the third bit is what we call the indicators. So indicators are mainly provide actionable data for informed feedback or decision making. So you can think of a good indicator will be population indicators. So as you do the plans, of course, you have to factor in the demographics of the people you're planning for. What's the age group of the people we are planning for? What are their needs, and so on and so forth. Another good indicator could be suitability indicators. So you have overlaid the different layers within your planning area, and so you want to actually be able to see which areas are suitable for what kinds of developments. For instance, which areas are suitable for, commercial development and so on and so forth. Which areas are within a riparian reserve, which areas are conservation areas, and so on and so forth. So indicators will actually be able to provide that information for you to be able to make informed decisions, even as you prepare your plans. So I know someone may be wondering, so how exactly do we get started? So then this bit I'm going to talk about the system and data requirements for you to be able to get started with ArcGIS Urban. So in terms of the system requirements, as I already mentioned, ArcGIS Urban is a premium application on ArcGIS Online, meaning that for you to be able to work with ArcGIS Urban, you need to have an ArcGIS Online account. And then currently, ArcGIS Urban comes in the form of an ArcGIS Urban Suite license, which is bundled together with Esri City Engine. So when you buy ArcGIS Urban, you'll be able to get a license of City Engine. So they are bundled together. And then, so for the licenses, you're going to get the most current license. So if we're at ArcGIS Urban 1.1, and currently we are at City Engine 2019.1, so you're able to get the latest version of the licenses. Then the other thing that you'll also need to have is that you'll need to have specific user types within ArcGIS Online. So user types are mainly meant to assign to members of an organization based on their needs and requirements, and we have different types of user types within ArcGIS Online. So for you to be able to work with ArcGIS Urban, you'll mainly need a creator user type, GIS professional, and insights analyst user type. So with any of these user types, you can actually be able to work comfortably with ArcGIS Urban. So maybe just to point out what this means. So if you have a creator user type, it means that you can be able to create content, you can be able to administer the organization, And you can also be able to use essential apps, both field and office applications. And then for the GIS professional user types, you'll have the same capabilities as the creator. And in addition to that, also, you'll be able to work with ArcGIS Pro. So these user types corresponds with the ArcGIS Pro license that we have. Remember, we said ArcGIS Pro is one of the main desktop applications that we have. So if you have ArcGIS Pro Basic, Standard, or Advanced, the user type that you will have within your organization will correspond to the ArcGIS Pro license that you have. Then we also have the Insight Analyst, which is mainly used with Insights. So those are the user types that you will need for you to be able to work with ArcGIS Urban. Then I also need to point out that Urban comes with an Urban data model. So when you create an Urban model, so ArcGIS Urban comes with an Urban data model. So this data model enables you to prepare GIS data sets, create feature classes, tables, and configure data access settings and other configurations. So in terms of the system requirements, that's what you need to be able to get started with ArcGIS Urban. Then the next bit will be on the data requirements. What data sets do you need to be able to, start working with ArcGIS Urban? So the first is the 3D layers. So you will need the 3D layers if they're buildings, if they're trees, if they're base maps. So you'll need the 3D layers. And for the 3D layers, these you can actually be able to get them. Like I know City Engine is a very good source of these data sets. So if you need 3D layers for a specific area that you're planning for, you can be able to get this from Esri City Engine. So there's a functionality called Get Map Data. So you'll be able to specify your area of interest or the area that you're planning for. Then you can be able to download the 3D layers. If they are buildings, if they are terrain and all that, you can actually be able to get this. And this is possible since once you publish these data sets to ArcGIS Online, then they can actually be consumed by Urban. Then the next type of data set is what we call types. So we have different types. We have zoning types, we have project status types, building types, space use types. We have what we call types. So for you to also get started with working with ArcGIS Urban, you need to define these types. So if you're working in an area, you need to define the zoning types of the area that you're working for, that you're working in. So on my screen, I have just captured a screenshot of the zoning types based on I mainly picked this from the planning handbook. So we have like the type, the label, the color code for that type, and the description. And then of course, for each zoning type, we will have different zoning regulations. So you have to define these before you get started with working with ArcGIS Urban. So these are the foundational layers that you will need. Then we have also project status types. So also on my screen, I've just shared a screenshot of what you could have for project status type. So we can have those projects that are waiting approval, those that have been approved, those that are ongoing, completed, and so on and so forth. So the thing with this is that you're able to customize depending on what you're working on. So you can be able to determine how to define the different statuses. Then we have the plans and projects. So then you're then able to bring in your 3D plans and projects. If you're working on your desktop application, you're then able to bring all this to Urban. Then the other thing that you will also need are what we call the indicators. So a good source of the indicators will be the Living Atlas. So the Living Atlas is a collection of geographic information from around the world. So these mainly include maps, applications, data layers. So for you to access this, simply go to livingatlas.arcgis.com, and then you're able to search for specific data sets that you need, and then you can add them to your Urban. So the thing with this is that ArcGIS Urban is part of ArcGIS Online, so you can actually be able to add these data sets directly from the Living Atlas to your ArcGIS Online and work with them in ArcGIS Urban. So in terms of the system and data requirements, that's what you need to be able to get started with ArcGIS Urban. So the next thing that I'm going to take us through is a brief demonstration, just mainly to show us how to get started with Urban, how to create an Urban model, how to license. So I'm going to take us through a brief demonstration just to show how to get started with ArcGIS Urban, how to create an urban model, how to license. So the next session is a brief demonstration just showing how you can be able to get started with ArcGIS Urban. So as I mentioned, Urban is a premium application on ArcGIS Online. So for you to be able to access ArcGIS Urban, you have to sign into your ArcGIS Online organizational account. So you need to simply go to arcgis.com. Then there will be a section where you will be needed to sign in. So you need to sign in with log in with your credentials. So I'm logging into my organizational account with my credentials. Yeah, so this is my organizational account. So this account has different tabs. We have the home tab, which you can customize to reflect what you want as an organization. Then we have different other tabs here. We have the gallery tab. This is where you'll have all the content, all the organization's content, the maps, the apps that have been published. So you can actually be able to have all the content that has been published by different members within your organization. Then we have the section on the organization section, which I think is of importance to us for this presentation. So this is where you're actually able to assign licenses to different members within your organization. So you can actually be able to see all the licenses that you have as an organization. So as I mentioned, ArcGIS Urban comes in the form of an ArcGIS Urban suite, which is bundled together with Esri City Engine. Then I talked of the different user types that are compatible with ArcGIS Urban. So you can have the creator user type, you can have the GIS professional user type. So the GIS professional is corresponds to the ArcGIS Pro license that you have. So you can have ArcGIS Pro Basic, ArcGIS Pro Advanced, ArcGIS Pro Standard, and so on and so forth. So with any of these user types, then you can actually be able to work with ArcGIS Urban. So in case you need to assign the licenses to specific members within your organization, simply come to Manage, then assign the license to specific members within your organization. So it will actually ask you whether you want to assign them and send them an email notification or not. So you can actually be able to assign the license to specific members within your organization. So the next thing, we have this section, the content tab or section within ArcGIS Online. So this is where we are going to create a new ArcGIS Urban model. So simply come to create, then you can be able to create various applications. But for this presentation, we're interested in creating an urban model. So come to create urban model, then give it a name. So we're going to call it demonstration. Yeah, then give it, let's call it ArcGIS Urban. So tags are mainly meant to help you easily locate your application once you've created it, then click OK. So when we create the urban model, remember I mentioned the three components that come with the urban model. So I still come back to my content. So once we are done creating an urban model, we'll have a database, we'll have a design database, and we'll have the database view, which will be mainly used for the data view bit of ArcGIS Urban. So when you create an ArcGIS Urban, there are two options. You can either use an example city, or you can create a totally new urban model. So we're going to explore both. I'm going to create a new model, and I'm going to also show as an example of what an existing urban model city looks like. So the first case will be to create a new model. So click on Setup Urban. So it's going to create the three components that I mentioned. I think it's going to take some time, so I'm going to work with an already existing model. So when you create the ArcGIS Urban model, this is the kind of interface. This is actually the user interface. So it has different components. It has the plans component. It has the projects component. It has the indicators and the ideas. So you can be able to see if it's projects. You can actually be able to see the projects within your area of interest, and they are color coded. So you can actually be able to see the different types of projects within your area of interest. So this is just for demo purposes. You can actually be able to see which ones are completed, which ones are stalled, which ones are ongoing, and so on. Same applies for plans. You can actually be able to see the different plans within the different areas. So if, say, you're doing a plan for different areas, you can actually be able to see the plans that you've prepared for the different areas in 3D. Then the other thing that I need to mention is that this settings section is really important when you're working with Urban. This is where you determine the different settings for what you'll be working on. And I think I'm more interested in showing us how to define the different types. So we talked about zoning types, we talked about project status types, we talked about building types and space use types. So for instance, we want to define the zoning types for our urban model that we'll be using. So I already did this, but I'm just going to show us how to do it. So this again is picked on, is based on the physical planning handbook, just showing the different zones and how they are color coded. So suppose we didn't have this and we needed to create our own zoning types, you simply come to add. And then there are different options of doing this. You can add this from a spreadsheet, you can add it from a feature table or feature layer symbology. So if we choose, say, add from a spreadsheet, then there's an already existing template. So you can actually download the template and then feed in the information on the zoning types and upload it here. So once you upload it, you'll be able to get what I have on the screen. So I just want to show us an example of what the spreadsheet looks like with the different zoning types. So just give me a few minutes. I'm just opening the spreadsheet, then I can share my screen. Yes, so this is what you will actually get. So you have the description of the zone, the color code, and then the zoning ordinances or the zoning guidelines for that particular area. So for instance, you have like what's the maximum height that is allowed in this area, what's the coverage in terms of how much you can be able to build on that particular floor, what are the number of floors that you can actually be able to build on, and so on and so forth, allowed space use type, and all these, maximum number of floors, dwelling units per maximum area, and all that. So you can actually feed in that information here. And once you're done, so let me just go back to where we were. So once you're done, you can actually be able to add your spreadsheet here. So if you choose to add from spreadsheet, you simply come here, choose where you have saved that file, and upload it here. So you'll be able to get exactly what I have on my screen. So that applies to zoning types, that applies to project status types. So I also did this. So in case you need to add any other status type, you simply come here under configure, add a status, color code it, and all that. So before you get started with working with Urban, you need to define these types. Then the other thing that you need to do is you need to have all your layers that you'll be working with. If they're the zoning layers, if they're the parcel layers, you need to have all these. So you can actually be able to add these. So if they're already existing within ArcGIS Online or they're in a desktop application where you're working from, you need to publish them to ArcGIS Online. Then you'll be able to import them to ArcGIS Urban. So I think it's really important to be able to know how to be able to do this. So this is you have to start from defining the different uses and having the data sets before you can start working with ArcGIS Urban. So I just want to show example plans and example projects that we have. So for instance, if you click on a specific plan, yeah, like for this one, this is a plan for an informal area within Malindi, Kibokoni. So you can actually be able to see the details of that plan. You can be able to see the start date when this plan was, when the date when the plan preparation, the plan implementation began, and when the work is actually supposed to end. So we have the start date and the end date. Then we have the web scene of that particular plan area. Then you can choose to share it publicly if you want members of the public to be able to see these. So let me just go to where we'll have the 3D model of our project area. So of course you'll start by first having the 2D plan of your area of interest. Then I have defined the different space uses just based on what I'll be working on in this particular area. I think let me turn off some of the layers that I will not need. Yeah, so I think this works. So you can actually be able to click on a specific land use, and you can actually be able to see the details of that particular land use. For instance, you can be able to see the plot number for that particular parcel. You can be able to see who the owner is, the land use, if it's a high, like all these will be a high density residential area. So you can actually be able to see all these details. So in case you need more details, more attributes, you can actually be able to add all these information right within when you'll be doing your schema. So it's important to define these as you start working. Yeah. So I have I have buildings color coded just to show which ones are currently being developed, which ones are complete, and so on and so forth. So this is one example. I want to pick on another example. Still on the different plans that you can be able to have. So again, this is what for demonstration purposes. So assuming we have another plan within Nairobi and we just want to see what is existing here. Just zoom into. So you can actually be able to see what's already existing within your planned area. I think it's gonna take some time to load. Yeah. So in case you need to have new developments within this plan area, you can actually be able to see what already is existing and do some analysis to see whether what you are proposing will be compatible with the users. So for instance, if we need to develop here, again, this is just for demonstration purposes to see how you can be able to do this. So you simply draw the area where you're going to have your next project, then you're able to analyze if whatever you need developed there will be compatible with the existing users. So you need to have the data sets before you get to work with ArcGIS Urban. So here you can be able to determine the maximum number of floors for the project that you're going to do here, the maximum height, and all these maximum dwelling units you've selected. You can be able to determine all this. So this demonstration was mainly meant to show us how to be able to get started with that section is the ideas section. So under the ideas section, you can be able to add in comments. This is, for instance, you need a particular project done here. So you can simply show the area and then make your comment, say, kindly consider putting up kindergarten here. So you're able to share ideas. So if you're members of a team, or maybe you feel based on the proposals that you feel like something else should be in a particular area and not what has been proposed for that area. So as a team, you can actually be able to share ideas and make proposals. So this presentation was mainly meant to enable us know how to get started with ArcGIS Urban. I have shared more resources just in case you need more information about getting started with ArcGIS Urban. So these resources will be very helpful if you need to get started with ArcGIS Urban. You need to see some of the example cities that have been done using ArcGIS Urban, some of the plans and projects that have been done using ArcGIS Urban, then these will be very useful. So once again, I want to thank you so much for finding time for joining us for today's webinar. We're looking forward to having you in the series of